Hey, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce, joined tonight by a special guest, one Mr. Joey Ricotta. Sir, first off, how are you doing after a holy shit, much needed Cubs victory?
Dude, I'm great. I'm great. This is, like you said, much needed. Finally, it's over. We can move forward and get past this, hopefully, and we're back on and hitting stride. I mean, we saw, not to get too far into it, but when you see Nico Horner and Andrew Chafin having a moment there after that random little diving catch that he didn't have to make, but he did have to make.
Yeah.
But it was like routine. When you see a moment like that, it's like things are going well. So I think this is exactly the type of game the Cubs needed, and we needed as fans to finally just put this madness behind us, because these last couple weeks, man, just brutal.
Yeah, absolutely brutal. And for those that are joining, if you're like, why aren't they more excited? It's just because it's a little later and we're getting a little tired. But we're hyped. We're hyped.
Yeah.
And I'm hyped to do this because I haven't done this in a while. For those that know, they know the W flag is on the hat. I'm excited. We're talking about an 8-3 Cubs win tonight, a much-needed victory because, Joey, like you and I were talking about kind of off air, I mean, going into this one, it was a game that I think a lot of Cubs fans weren't sure about. Zach Wheeler on the mound for the Phillies. For those that weren't, maybe aren't like full league followers, which I understand because, it happens. But Zach Wheeler probably putting together, top 5 pitcher right now in the game in terms of how his season's gone. I mean, he was 6-4 coming into tonight. Mills on the mound, which I don't think people were as scared about. I think Mills has been pretty good overall so far in the starting role this season. But you were just like, holy hell, like, let's just at least get a couple out of this thing and see what happens. And sure enough, the Cubs do some damage. They get 7 runs off of Wheeler. Granted, I think only 4 were earned. Correct. Only 4 were earned, but still, I mean, anytime you get that many runs off an elite starter, you're in a good spot. So I guess that's a great place to start, right? Because it really felt like, you mentioned like Nico and Chafin having the moment, the vibes were there, but like Nico had a good night. I mean, just looking at the box score right here, Peterson 2 for 4. Bryant was technically 0 for 2, but he scored a run. Wisdom was 1 for 2 tonight. Rizzo was 2 for 4. Contreras was 1 for 4. Hayward 1 for 4. Nico 2 for 4. It really felt like pretty much everybody minus Alcantara and Mills, had hits in this game. So it wasn't really a team collective effort, just getting the offense going tonight and getting those 8 runs.
Yeah, man, that's exactly right. Like the first inning, it felt like you had to jump on him early, because if you don't, you're going to get that kind of mindset going of, can we hit this guy? This guy's killing the league. Like you said, one of the top pitches in the game this year. I mean, I put out a tweet that I think he had, like, in his last 14 starts, this is only the second time that he hasn't made it through 6 innings.
That's crazy.
Just one of the most durable pitchers and, consistent pitchers in the league. You have a 2.05 ERA coming in tonight. When you get that type of the action early on in the game, the bats coming through. I mean, you had back-to-back 2-out RBI hits, I believe.
Things you love to see.
Yeah, Ron, I am excited. You talked me into it. Now I'm back and I'm excited again. I mean, I was excited before, but like you said, we're a little tired. It's a little late. We talked a little bit longer off air than we were probably supposed to. But man, this feels great. That first inning, you had to do it. I mean, Wilson Contreras hit the ball hard in the first inning, just right at the and KB, like you said, he didn't really have like hits in this game or anything, but he still was making things happen. He ran that ball out, and great base running by him in the first inning, because the outfielder really kind of tried to deke him out by acting like he had a play on the ball, and he didn't. And then KB read that and got there, and then he avoided getting doubled up on that Contreras smash. So that was just a great first inning, man. Not much else you could say about that first inning, and of course they piled it on a little bit after that too.
Yeah, and and to your point, right, about that first inning, like I think back, if I remember correctly, to I believe it was Monday's game where the Cubs had bases loaded in the first inning and couldn't get anything out of it, and we saw it then in Tuesday's game for the Phillies, obviously on the other side, first inning grand slam McCutchen 4-0 right out the gate. So like, first inning runs really are a momentum shifter for teams. And if you can get up early on anybody, it doesn't matter who the hell you're playing. I don't care if it's the Pittsburgh Pirates or it's, the Tampa Bay Rays, complete opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of standings. But you get that early lead and it gives you that confidence going into this one. And I agree with you. KB legs out the ball that he hits to Gregorius, the throw's not in time, obviously doesn't count as a hit. I'm pretty sure it registered as an error. And then, like you said, he gets to second base. Unfortunately, almost gets doubled up. Thankfully, he didn't. The umps made the right call when they went back and looked at it. And then, he scores. Again, that elite KB base running. If there's one thing, don't get me wrong, right? The Cubs have plenty of guys that can hit home runs and drive in, players and play good defense and play around the yard. Obviously, Bryant does it well, in all those categories. But KB's base running might be like the most underappreciated trait that man has, because I love watching him run the bases. Because he doesn't look fast, quote unquote, but like he's just so damn big and long that like he covers so much ground and nobody realizes it. And he's so good. And like you said, he scores, right? And then they just keep it going. And for those that, again, maybe that didn't see the game tonight or just need a refresher, we'll take you through it here really quick. Like we mentioned, bottom of the first, Jason Hayward, a little bloop single, scored Chris Bryant, as we mentioned, and got Anthony Rizzo to third. That made it 1-0. Nico Horner then came up and singled down the line to right field. That scored Rizzo. Hayward advanced to third again. The Cubs just going first to third like they've always done so well. And then even Rafael Ortega got in on the action. He singled up the middle. Hayward scored. Nico advanced to second. Cubs get 3 early runs. Bottom of the second, Anthony Rizzo hits his third triple of the season, fun fact, with Jock Peterson on base. That scores Jock and made it 4-0. And then Wilson Contreras came up right after him and scored Rizzo, made it 5-0. As we mentioned off air, but we'll mention now on air, Phillies made it a little interesting. Top of the sixth, they're able to get 3 quick runs. Bryce Harper double with Real Muto on base, scored him. And that made it 5-1. And then McCutchen hit his 15th home run of the season with Harper on. That made it 5-3. But the Cubs come through in the bottom of that same inning, exactly the type of response that you would hope from this team. Jock Peterson single drives in Nico Horner, with Ian Happ advancing to second after a Horner single and a Happ walk, which at that point, as you mentioned, Wheeler not getting through 6 innings, that Happ walk actually ended his night. And then Patty Wise, who came into the game for Chris, which, by the way, for those that maybe haven't read on Twitter, reportedly it's cramps, and they just were being precautionary with him. And they just said, hey, we're up 5-0. You're coming out of the game. It's cool, because we got the handsome bastard. And let's just be honest, that dude's a good looking human being. But Patrick Wisdom, 4th double of the season, that scored both Happ and Peterson. That made it 8-3, and that was all she wrote, because then Chafin, 2 shutdown innings in the 7th and 8th, and then Kimbrel comes in the 9th and closes the deal. So, I mean, dude, just it just felt like a complete game. A great start from Mills, great hitting all around from this entire lineup. Again, it wasn't just one guy really leading the charge tonight. Obviously, a couple guys more hits than others, but collective team effort from this entire lineup. The bullpen gets the job done. Brothers gets out of a jam there in the 6th. Chafin puts the load on his shoulders for 2 innings, and then Kimbrel, for the first time, other than that 1 out he recorded against the Reds since literally the freaking combined no-hitter, he gets the job done in the 9th. And it just the streak is over. The losing streak is done. And it's just so nice. It feels so much better. Again, it feels so much better seeing this little W hat patch here, because I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you, Joey. If you and I were doing this after a loss, I would be a miserable piece of shit, and it would not be fun. So I'm glad they won. I'm really glad they won.
No, listen, dude, it's incredible. Obviously, like you said, it's a collective effort. I mean, all the way up and down the lineup. The bullpen was nails. Mills had a really good outing too, and there's the all important shutdown innings. I mean, my God, after those runs that you got in the first inning, boom, shuts them down. Top half of the second, runs in the bottom of the second, shuts them down. Top of the third. He pitched a good game. He ran into trouble there towards the end of his outing. And like we said, McCutchen, get that pest out of here. That dude just rakes against the Cubs. He's a lifetime 304 hitter with like 28 bombs and just less than 100 RBIs and like a full season's worth of games. I mean, 163 games against them. But Dude, that's like a great season with like 28 steals against the Cubs too. That's a great season for any player, and he just does that against the Cubs for his career. So yeah, he's a Cub killer. I'm pretty sure we can just go ahead and say that at this point he's a Cub killer. But yeah, I mean, and look who shut him down, Andrew Chafin.
Mm-hmm.
Chafin shut him down later. So you love to see it, man. Love to see it. This team, like, finally they needed something to get the monkey off their back, and it felt like they did. And they were breaking out last night too. I mean, the 10 runs, that's no joke. So, you know, yeah, so a lot of that you can say that's garbage time, whatever. They showed fight though, and that's what I like to see. I think it's always great when you got guys running out balls, you know, even like late in that game yesterday. I mean, it wasn't like the effort has been there with this team. The effort has been there. And that's one thing that's like with this whole losing streak, you just felt like it was just right around the corner. It was going to snap eventually. It's baseball. It's a long season. Yeah. You know, we have seen stuff like this, but I mean, like, this is a pretty historic losing streak the Cubs were on. I mean, putting their names in the hat with some other really bad Cubs teams historically. So with this team, you don't expect that. You don't expect them to go on this type of a losing streak. So now that you can finally get your big guns in there at the end, like Kimbrel finally pitching, like you said. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm not going to say it's because of me, but I did change my profile pic to Craig Kimbrel before this game. And like I was doing this whole losing streak. Well, not the whole losing streak of the last few games. I've been changing my profile pic to make it different every game because you got to find that right one. You got to find that winning profile pic. And I think I found the one. It's Craig Kimbrel doing the, you know, his pre-pitch.
His little arm dangle that he does. I'll tell you what, man, I've always been a firm believer of this because, you know, you and I were talking, we were both athletes in our lives. It's only weird if it doesn't work. And I think every athlete has those weird superstitions that they do. And again, you might not be superstitious, but you might be a little stitious. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's just kind of how it works. You know, like, hey, when I played football, the left sock always went on before the right sock and the left cleat always went on before the right cleat. Don't ask me why, but that's just how it was. You know, like it's those little things. You just got to find what works. And yeah, man, I mean, if that's what works, it finally worked. It snapped, like you said, a really historic Cubs losing streak. I mean, they were talking today. I saw, I don't even remember who posted it, but the last time the Cubs had this kind of losing streak was they relied on the arm of Randy Wells. Let's throw that name out there.
Oh, man.
To break that streak. Oh, yeah. I mean, like you said, we're talking.
I want to say like
2012, I think it was, or 2011. It was one of the two. I think it's 2011.
No-hitter.
He might have. I'm not sure. I would have to look that up. But Randy Wells had a nice little career with some really bad Cubs teams. But no, it was actually funny because they put out today, somebody put out the lineup of the game that they snapped an 11-game losing streak. I think it was 2011 or 2012. And it was like, you know, Brian LaHare was playing first base and, you know, Castro was in at short. Who else? Caselli was catching, I think if you remember those days, he was like the fourth catcher on those teams, if I remember correctly. I mean, it was a pretty bad lineup, if we're just being brutally honest here. Ian Stewart was playing third base. That's the fun days of Cubs baseball. And I'm not even kidding because Paul Maholm was on the mound. I might have actually been at that game because I saw Paul Maholm start like 4 games for the Cubs and he was only here for half a season. So
wow.
It's weird. It's
turned into the Braves, right?
I believe so. I believe it was the Braves. Yeah, made a lot of trades with the Braves at that time.
He was actually pretty decent, though.
He was. I'm pretty sure I saw like 3 Paul Maholm wins that season, and it was. I think they only won like 60, like high 60s, low 70s games. So that should just go to show, you know, how that worked. But I mean, like you said, man, I mean, historic streaks that this team was like starting to get up there with. So it's not like you said, it's nice to get the monkey off the back. It's nice to just be talking about a win. And again, there wasn't really Juice and I always joke. And for those that are listening, whether live still here or on the podcast, you've heard Juice and I joke about this. We talk about boring Cubs games and how when the podcast is slightly boring, it means the game itself went really well because there's nothing to bitch about. Yeah. And that's kind of how tonight's game felt because Alec Mills, and I think this is something we can talk about a little more in depth here, and I would love to get your take on Alec Mills because, he comes in, pitches a great game again, back-to-back great starts for him. You get, Rex Brothers comes in. Admittedly, I don't understand the love connection that David Ross has, the brothers, but
I don't get it either. We got to get into that though too, because that's been one thing that lately, like the last few games, and I don't mean to cut you off at all, but like, why is he in every single game and every single critical moment? It feels like lately, Rex Brothers is in there, and he was good earlier in the season, but lately, I mean, he came through tonight. So saying that, I'm not saying. It's hard to, like, hindsight's 2020, right? But
of course, and I feel that. I feel where you're going with that too, because like, and that's we'll circle back there here real quick. But like Brothers comes in, gets the job done. Chafin, Kimbrough, like again, I don't have a lot to bitch about in this game, which is great. I'm happy. We're talking about a win, and we can actually highlight the good things that happened. But let's talk about Brothers here for a second, then, and then we can trot it back to the guy before him, then in Mills, because I do want to talk about Mills and highlight him as well. But I get Brothers is one of the few lefties in this pen. I know that's a big reason as to why he gets used a lot. Unfortunately, they just don't have a ton of lefties. But if we're being honest, I guess, can we call him a friend of the program? Maybe we can call him a friend of the program. He's interacted with us on Twitter. He now follows us on Twitter, which is pretty sweet too.
I know where you're going with it.
I want to see Brad Wick in the game.
Yeah.
Brad Wick's a badass. You know what I mean? Like, Brad Wick is just that dude. He's huge, first off. The dude looks like a freaking NBA small forward.
He's like 6'10" or something.
Yeah, I think officially, he's like 6'7" or 6'8". Like, he's huge. I mean, he's literally huge. And it seems like every time he comes in, he's good. And it's like, again, I get it. Brothers is experienced. He has a lot of, career time in the league and things like that. But, like, I don't understand the love that Ross has for Brothers because he's used him a lot this season. And granted, like you said, earlier in the season, he was really, really good. Like, almost like underappreciated good. But lately, he's had some slip-ups, and now it's like,
he's coming back down to, like, where he's supposed to be, I think. He can still be a quality pitcher in this pen. Don't get me wrong, I think there's definitely a spot for him, and you're going to need him in some instances.
Right.
But I don't want it to be relied on, or every game relying on, Rex Brothers. I would love to see a lot more Brad Wick. That guy's so dominant. I don't even think he's allowed to earn run all season. Yeah.
I don't think he has, but I will confirm that for you. Continue.
Yeah. Please check it. But he's striking guys out like left and right. I mean, he's got that power fastball. He's got nasty stuff. I mean, when he's on, we've seen him in the past where he's been pretty good, but then he kind of comes back down to earth too. So I'm hoping that this isn't like we're going to see something similar here with Brad Wick soon. And I don't want to speak that into existence. So nobody come after me if that happens. But I'm just saying I'm really excited where it is right now, where he is, where his game's at.
Yeah.
And I really want to see him in those higher leverage roles. Ross, please start to utilize him that way because he's pitching like he's a high leverage type of reliever. So when you have that, and by the way, I forgot to crack him. We've been on here for I don't know how long.
Your very warm beer that we were joking about before.
Yeah, it's already. It's a little bit of coolness, but it's pretty warm now.
No, I feel that.
But anyways, go ahead.
I was going to say, as you take your first sip of your lovely beverage, Brad Wick, 15 games this season. Like you said, no earned runs, 17 innings of work, 28 strikeouts in those 17 innings. Like, he's been very good. And I think, too, to your point, right, you mentioned Brothers in those high leverage situations. I think we kind of went through this same argument and kind of experience, I guess, for lack of a better term, with Justin Steele earlier in the season, right? He came in kind of those garbage time moments, looked really, really good. And we're like, okay, when did we see him in a high leverage situation? Then they finally did start using him there, and he succeeded. Unfortunately, he just got hurt. So I think once he comes back, I think with still keeping Wick in the pen, I think they should keep Wick up even when Steele eventually comes back. But then once that happens and you have three lefties in the pen, like, I think you will see then a little less of Brothers. I think right now it's just like he's the guy that knows those high leverage situations. Steele's hurt. Wick really hasn't done a ton of pitching in those high leverage situations just yet. So maybe they're just, again, and I get it, Ross is a young manager still too, and like who he trusts and feels comfortable with. Brothers has kind of been there, done that, and experience does help, especially as a relief pitcher. So I understand that need. Thankfully tonight you only had to get one out, and then you're able to turn the ball over to Chafin for 2 innings, who again, admittedly hasn't gotten a ton of work either recently because of the losing streak, and then obviously get the ball to Kimbrel there in the 9th. So things you love to see, out of the pen. But it's just really weird with Rex Brothers and the love affair that Ross has with them. But I think right now it's a little circumstantial, and I hope that's the case. I think once we see Steele come back, maybe if they start to use Wick a little more, maybe all of a sudden now that narrative with Brothers changes. But again, on the topic of pitchers, Alec Mills was just freaking fantastic. I'm trying not to drop F-bombs. I'm really bad about it on these shows. But, I mean, he looks really, really good. It just continues, just great outing after great outing. Didn't look great coming out of the pen early in the season. Obviously, then got hurt for a little while, was gone. He seems like a pitcher that just does better in a starting role. And,
yes,
I mean, right now, he other than maybe Kyle Hendricks and Zach Davies, and I would say are obviously, Adbert, because just he's the young upcoming stud, but really outside of like the kind of for sure guys in this rotation, like he deserves to stay. I don't think Williams or Arrieta or anybody of that nature should get a position in the rotation over Mills just because he's been that good in his last, 4 starts now that he's had this season.
Yeah, no question. I mean, look at it again tonight, Ron. Like, dude, he only walked 1 batter and he struck out 5. I'm not saying like he's not a strikeout guy by any means. Like, nobody's looking at him like that. He's another Kyle Hendricks-ish type, a town that same kind of bloodline, of pitchers that we have.
Ish is a good way to put it.
yeah. Because I mean, they're different in a lot of ways too, But
sure.
But yeah, they are similar to their own to an extent, I guess. I mean, of course, like nobody's Kyle Hendricks, so we can't really say that. But no, man, another great outing for him. He's been really, really just under the radar good lately, I think, because like I put out the article today, obviously the Arrieta one, which pained me to write as a long time, lifelong Cubs fan, longtime Arrieta fan. We all loved what he did for the organization. I think we all kind of saw it coming this season. Maybe you get lightning in a bottle. I think that's what the Ricketts were hoping for there. And I don't mean to get off on like some tangent here, but Alec Mills, he deserved a rotation spot, I think, coming into the season. I was like, how does he not get a rotation spot? Then with the additions of Trevor Williams and Jake Arrieta, it's like, okay, well, who are they going to cut out? It's pretty obvious they're probably going to cut out Alec Mills, which is what happened. But Adbert Alzolay, admittedly, I wasn't sure if he was ready or not coming into the season. I thought maybe he doesn't start with the roster, but he had to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it makes sense that they did that. So anyways, but back to Alec Mills. You're right, man. You're right. He's better in a starting pitching role, I think. Better starting games, out of the bullpen. It's clear that he wasn't happy out there. He didn't want to be out there to begin with. And they even mentioned it, I think, on the broadcast. He's a guy that really likes to be relied on. He likes that the team is counting on him. He likes that they have to they need him to perform well. He likes these moments. If you got a guy that likes these moments or likes when he's being relied on, he's not just going out there like, oh, I hope I get it done today. That's what you want. That's what you want as a starting pitcher. And even if he is like technically like a 4-5, number 4 or 5 in the rotation, who cares? If he's going to give you 5-6 innings of quality pitching, 3 runs, if he gives you 6 innings, 5-6 innings, 3 runs every time, I'll take that out of a number 4, number 5 pitcher all day long. And I hope he comes to the next game with the Looney Tune costume, whatever it was, the Space Jam.
Yeah.
Space Jam, because he looked absolutely incredible in that thing. So whatever. Anyways, no, it was great, man. I love to see what Alec Mills is doing right now.
Yeah, and I really enjoy watching Alec Mills. And like you said, I mean, he goes 5 2/3 tonight. Like you said, only walks 1, strikeout 5. He did the exact same thing against Cincinnati last week, 5 2/3, only walks 1, but he struck out 9. Now, granted, could have been a little bit of the umpire. That dude in Cincinnati was absolute horseshit. But Nonetheless, we'll take the 9 strikeouts. But again, what I always liked about Mills and what I continue to like about him is, everybody obviously calls him like Hendricks 2.0, right? But the difference being Hendricks rarely touches 90. Like he hovers in that like 87 to 89 range with the fastball. Obviously the elite changeup that, hovers in the low 80s, sometimes even high 70s. And then his hook is usually in the high to mid 70s. So the range of speed in his stuff is large enough, but it's not crazy. With Mills, he can throw that hook so much slower than Hendricks does, and he can throw his fastball harder than Hendricks does. So it makes his speed gap between all of his pitches larger, if that makes sense. He's hitting 66, 65, 67 with that curveball, but he tops out at 90, 91 with the fastball sometimes. That's quite a large, difference in speed that these hitters have to see. And I think that's what makes him effective as a starter is because, if he's missing with a pitch, even at the speed it's missing, it still looks different enough that it's going to screw with a hitter's psyche a little bit. That hook's coming in at 67, that fastball's coming in at 91 with some action. Mm-hmm. And then when he does throw the changeup, usually hovers in the high 70s. So even the difference between his fastball, the changeup, and then changeup the curve is large enough where like it really can keep a hitter off balance. And again, like you said, we're not sitting here saying he's a number 1 or 2 pitcher on, a great team. But even as a 4 and a 5 guy, like if you're going to get quality, and again, obviously tonight didn't go down as a true quality start, quote unquote, statistically, but if you're going to get a good outing from him every single time out as a 4 or 5 pitcher, it's all you're asking. And that's what he did tonight. And that's what he did his last outing. And even in his 4 innings against the Dodgers, when he only gave up 2 runs, he did that then. So like he just, like you said, he likes to be relied on. He comes out, he gives you a good outing, at least, 5 to 6 innings. And that's all you can ask for. And if he keeps you in the game, that's all you want out of him at this point, because, that was, really, that's been the Cubs' Achilles heel. Let's be honest. Like the offense, yes, has been streaky at times, but still good. Mm-hmm. The bullpen, even with being, worn down and taxed, has still been good overall. This rotation has been the Achilles heel of this Cubs team, and we're seeing it night in and night out, right? I mean, Williams comes back last night and gets tattooed against the Phillies. Arrieta gets tattooed, pretty much ever since April, for being entirely honest. Hendricks has been good more so lately, but even he was beat up a little bit early in the season. Davies, same thing as Hendricks, pretty much, both kind of beat up early in the season, but really settled in nicely. It's nice. It's a breath of fresh air, really, seeing Mills doing what he's doing, where it's just like, hey, man, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to give you at least 5, hopefully 6 good innings. I'm not going to strike out 12 batters, but hey, I'll get 5, 6, 7 guys. I might only walk 1 or 2, and I'm only going to give up maybe 3 runs at most. And
that's the thing too. Like just expanding on what you're saying. I mean, he, the way that he pitches. I mean, he got 5 Ks tonight or whatever. I think it was career high last time. The 9.
Yeah, with the 9. Yeah.
But like you're saying, the pitch speed changes, like all that, and the pitch to contact that he does. Along with, he's pretty efficient. I mean,
yes,
he works quickly, or I don't know if quickly is the word.
He does work quickly too. He doesn't waste time in between pitches. He just gets up there and just rears up and throws.
But he's effective though. Like he's pitching with a purpose, and it's not just like I'm not going to beat around the bush. I'm going to go after these guys. And I like the way that his sinker was really moving tonight. I mean, that sinker it really does move a little bit more than I originally thought, like coming into this season.
Yeah.
From what I had remembered. I mean, that sinker was moving pretty well. And like the change of speeds, as you mentioned, that's one thing that sometimes our other pitchers kind of struggle with. Like they don't know what to use against like left-handed batters, for instance. Like when it comes to Albert Alzolay, love the guy. I think he's going to be great, but doesn't have a third pitch. Alec Mills, like right now, he's pretty much just fastball slider for Alzolay. Alec Mills, like you said, he's got those 4 pitches really that he kind of can show whenever he wants to, even though, he was like 60% sinker, I think, tonight, something like that, so he was pretty heavily using that pitch, but he did mix in, change-ups and all that too. So, yeah, I mean, this type of outing, though, not to go down like a huge long spiel about it again, but I think he could be really serviceable for this team.
Absolutely.
And maybe for next year or whatever, like you need a number 4, number 5 starter. This could be a guy that we actually are like, we're looking back at him next year. We're looking at this and we're saying, wow, like he's just really underrated. I mean, look at Kyle Hendricks, just for example, because I don't want to compare apples to, it's not apples to apples, whatever. But we didn't think he was anything when he first started pitching. Like nobody, he wasn't a highly thought of prospect or anything. He was just this guy that knew how to pitch, like really just knew how to pitch and locate.
Yep.
We could be looking at him next year with a completely different lens and like, wow, this guy's actually better than anybody thought.
Yeah.
And
I think he got some disrespect coming into the season too, because he was so good, really. I mean, for the Cubs last year, the only times he really ever got beat up was when they would pitch him and Hendricks back to back, whether whoever went first or second. But usually in the same series, you don't want those guys going back to back, and they would do that a lot. Yeah, they were too similar. Yeah. So, that was the only time he really ever got beat up. Otherwise, he was very good last year for the Cubs. And I think he just became much of an afterthought because of, the additions of Williams and Arrieta and things like that. But I really do think, going into next season, you have a lot of money coming off of this payroll. And this is obviously something that we're going to beat to death come, October and later. Sure. But like, let's say they go out and spend on an arm. I'm going to speak it into existence, maybe a Marcus Stroman, because I would love to see Strosho in a Cubs uniform.
He'd be great in a Cubs uniform.
I got his Blue Jays jersey chilling in my closet right now. If he comes to the Cubs, I will be the first person in Chicago that owns a Marcus Stroman jersey. Like, that is one of my favorite baseball players in the entire league. But, like, you get a guy like him, let's say, or another, like, good free agent pitcher. Let's hypothetically say here. Realistically, Davies is probably traded at the deadline, the way the team's trending, unfortunately, right now. And we'll save those somber thoughts for our All-Star Week episode when we don't have games. But let's say Hendricks isn't dealt, because I pray to God Hendricks isn't dealt, but he's in your rotation next year. Alzolay's for sure in your rotation. But like, if you have him, Alzolay, and Mills is kind of your 3 going in next year, and you got to fill 2 slots, and you can fill with a free agent acquisition or a trade acquisition, and then either maybe another free agent trade acquisition or somebody in-house, say a Keegan Thompson, if you think he's ready to get some starts, Justin Steele, somebody of that nature.
Yeah,
this rotation is in better shape than you thought. Yeah, exactly. They're in better position than you would think they would be.
Also, like it's a solid building block, I guess. Like you can put that together and like you said, you could have Stroman or somebody from free agency, I mean, I don't know if they're willing to spend that kind of money. That's the thing, like what they're going to do. I mean, there's money coming off the books, of course, but where are they going to put the money? That's the biggest question.
Of course.
But yeah, man, I don't know. We'll have to see. Like, you mentioned Davies. I mean, he might even be back next year. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I mean, like that. And then you get like this kind of situation where we have going right now, where it's like 3 pitchers are pretty much the same.
Right.
Like with Hendricks, Davies, and Mills. And then like, you're just going to have 2 power guys in between them? I mean, you could do that. Sure. You could definitely put like 2 power pitchers in between them. Or 2 different, bat missing type of pitchers, like an Alzolay and somebody else in between.
Sure.
But I don't know. It's just ideas, I guess. It's a good process to have, I think, for us as fans too, looking at it and saying, hey, I can see where this is going and I can see the development here. And, of course, those guys, I really want to see Steele get a shot. I want to see Keegan Thompson get a shot in the rotation. Those 2 guys, man, and even Corey Abbott, he hasn't pitched that well, like with the big league club or even really in the minors this year, but he's pitched, I think he started like 8 games. All 8 of his games in the minors have been starts.
Yep.
And he's pitching like 5 innings just about every time. So, I mean, he's a guy that could give you length. I don't know. This is just like, now I'm kind of opening it up to like what are they going to do with the Arrieta spot, I guess, now that we know that he's, hamstring tightness. Yeah, right.
Injured, quote unquote.
Yeah, we knew it was coming. Something was coming.
Yeah.
but it was either DFA or it was going to be that, and they chose this route, and I'm okay with that. It's whatever it is that you decide to do. Maybe he'll be back after the All-Star break. We don't know. I kind of have a hard time seeing that happen, but
yeah, and maybe he gets relegated to a bullpen role, because I mean, and everybody's gonna laugh at me. Oh, you think he's gonna be good out of the bullpen? Yeah, he gives you a good first inning. He just gets tattooed in the second inning. So fuck it. If he can give
this last time the first inning wasn't so good though. But
well, sure, but
yeah,
normally, same. Yeah, but again, if guys don't know what they're going into with him, and he can be a little more fresh and maybe overthrow per se in one inning of work versus 6 or trying to go like 4, 5, or 6. With an older arm like that, maybe he provides more value to the Cubs as a bullpen arm. And I don't think there's any shame in that, because let's be honest, if he can come in the 7th inning and give you a good 7th inning to get you to guys like Chafin, Tepera, and, assuming Kimbrel's here after the deadline, which he won't be, but like if he can get you though to those back end arms, whoever it is, even if it's a guy like Justin Steele in a month and a half, like that's good. That's helpful to the team. That's worth the money that you paid him. At least he's not worth the money right now, being in a rotation spot, going an inning and 2/3 every fucking time he comes out, giving up 6 runs and just hindering your ball club. But if he can come out and overthrow a little bit and maybe get a little more power on all of his pitches and a little more movement, because he's willing to kind of quote unquote waste his arm for an inning, maybe that's where he finds his value. And maybe that's where, like you said, a guy like a Keegan Thompson steps into the rotation. And I've been joking about that since April. I'm like, when do we see a guy like Keegan Thompson get a spot start? At least one. And even Corey Abbott, like you said, I mean, he got recalled today because of the Arrieta move, so he's on the roster now. He's got 64 Ks to 18 walks, I believe, in the minors. It is 8 starts.
That's the impressive part to me, I think.
Yeah, he's got a very good K to walk ratio, and and that's the crazy thing too, is like a lot of people don't realize with him is like, and you nailed it, by the way. And the only reason I know that stat is because I wrote the article earlier, but it is 8 starts. That's his 8 games.
Oh, okay.
In the minors. He's got I think he's got like a 5, or it's a 4 something ERA. I think it's a 4.32 ERA, but his K to walk ratio is pretty good. I mean, 64 Ks
like
to
the
18
best
walks.
of his minor league career too, or K minus walk ratio, whatever is.
Yeah.
Really, that's impressive though, because if he's getting better in that department, of course it's not big league pitching, but if he's getting better in that department, there's something there that maybe he just needs to get more experience at the big league level. It's not necessarily that he can't pitch at this level. It's just when you don't pitch much at this level, you have a figuring out process. I mean, even the top prospects. Most pitchers that come up, they struggle early on in their career. Look at guys like Logan Gilbert. He struggled early on. I mean, like Daniel Lynch, Jackson Kowar, all these guys that have come up this year, a lot of them, they struggle early on. Those are like top prospect type of guys. Right. So eventually you just got to roll these guys out there, the Thompsons, the Steeles, the Abbotts, and say, hey, put your feet to the fire, jump off, like just get off the bus. Here you go. It's your time. Like, you're taking the training wheels off, and you just got to do it. Like, you got to get through these like 5 starts or whatever, and we'll see where you're at after that.
Right. No, and I completely agree with you. And I'd like to correct myself. His 4.32 ERA says major league ERA, not his minor league ERA. I think he is in the 5s.
It's not. I knew it wasn't good, but yeah,
it's not great, but it's not atrocious either. But I mean, he's also only 25, so like, let's like you said, he just hasn't had a lot of big league experience pitching, and he was a minor league pitcher of the system, I believe, in 2019, if I remember correctly. So he's no joke, right? He's not some slack job dude that just he's not just a warm body on the roster. Like, there's something there with Corey Abbott, and he just somehow needs to tap into that. And hopefully, who knows, maybe in this time they use him a little more. He gets to pitch in some high leverage situations, kind of like what happened with Justin Steele and with Keegan Thompson. And like, they warm these guys up and they get used to pitching at the big league level and learn how to pitch to big league hitters. And you never know, crazy shit can happen, when we get to that point. But nonetheless, man, hey, a big win tonight. I know we're excited talking about this one. And so I want to quickly turn it over to you as we approach the 40-minute mark here. Do you have any final thoughts before we go ahead and look forward to tomorrow's game, which actually the Cubs can split the series now thanks to tonight's win?
Yeah, how incredible would that be that we can actually get out of a series with a split? I mean, it's not a series win, but hey, we'll take a split. I mean, didn't look like this is even possible the way the first two games after the first two games. So, and the way that they went. Final thoughts, I guess, for this one, I'd say I believe it was nice to see, obviously, the offense. It was incredible to see, and it's great that we're getting back to where we need to be. The team's finally starting to hit again, and one other thing that I think I saw was Anthony Rizzo. I think Pat Hughes mentioned this on the radio. So my cousin was neighbors with Phil Cavaretta, and my nanny, which is Italian, it's grandmother it's Italian for grandmother. But she got an autograph of Phil Cavaretta's, and he was the old Cubs player. He was a manager too, first baseman. But anyways, Anthony Rizzo tonight, I believe he with his extra base hit with his triple, Tony triples.
Tony triples.
Yeah, we got to stick with that now all season. I can't believe he's hitting this many triples. That's crazy. He has tied, I believe he tied Phil Cavaretta for 10th most all time, 10th most in Cubs history for extra base hits with 532, I want to say. Wow. So, and that happened tonight. So that was the last thing I wanted to mention because I think it's just a cool stat that Rizzo's, he's 10th all time in Cubs history now in extra base hits. So,
yeah,
that's about it, man. It's great to get a win now, back in the win column. We're keeping the Craig Kimbrell profile pick, and let's keep it going.
I love that. And yeah, man, I'm right there with you. It's one of those things with tonight's game, like you said. It's nice to see a complete team win. They did a lot of good stuff. Only a game under 500 now. You're unfortunately tied with the dreaded St. Louis Cardinals. But they're 6-4 in their last 10, where the Cubs are 1-9 in their last 10. So, the Brewers lost today, which was cool. But the Cubs are still 8.5 back, ultimately. So it'll be interesting. Again, at least if you get in the win column, you take it one game at a time. You never know where this team could be in a couple of weeks. Do I think they still don't sell off a couple pieces? Well, I think they still do. I think Kimbrell's probably gone, especially after Buster Olney's tweet yesterday. Well, almost.
I was going to ask you about that.
Almost 2 days ago, because we're approaching the midnight hour here. But,
geez, we've been on for a while.
We have. But about him being the hottest name on the trade market this year. Which, if that's the case, then I hope the Cubs kind of sell him, even if they're still kind of in contention, just for the sheer sake of you got enough high leverage arms in this bullpen that can at least replace him, quote unquote, enough to be worth it. But if he can draw you a couple of top 100 prospects, or even top 5 and 6 guys in a team's arsenal of prospects, you do it. You do it, especially if you can get a guy that's close to the major league level. You get a guy that's in AAA this year, and maybe he's chilling down in AAA for the whole year, but coming into 2022, he's MLB ready. Fuck yeah, you go for it. Why not? Yeah. So I think, but at the same time, it'll at least be nice if the Cubs can stay in contention, because then I don't think they do a full-blown blow the thing up. They really truly then will start to assess, okay, hey, who's really do we want to be a part of this future, and who do we not want to be a part of this future? And then that's who they'll decide on who's, selling off and things like that. So I'm intrigued to see, how that rolls. But again, like you said, they got one, you're back in the win column, your game back under 500. You can get there tomorrow with a win. You can split the series, and things can be good. So we will go ahead. We'll quickly move forward here. But like we said, the Phillies and Cubs are back at it again for Game 4 of this series. It is the last game before the Cubs will welcome these dreaded St. Louis Cardinals to town over the weekend. But 7:05 start yet again here, Central Daylight Time at beautiful Wrigley Field in Chicago, Illinois. If you are listening or watching in the Phillies market, you can listen 94 WHIP or WTTM 1680 are your radio stations. NBC Sports Philadelphia is where you can watch. As for Chicago, the usual suspects, 670 The Score, WRTO 1200, and Marquee Sports Network for there. And then if you are out of market, ESPN will also be carrying this game for a little Thursday night baseball between the Cubs and Phils. For the Phillies, they will be trotting out right-handed pitcher Zach Eflin. He is 3-6 on the season with a 4.13 ERA and 89 strikeouts. As for the Cubs, they will be trotting out the young, promising right-hander Adbert Alzolay. Despite a 4-8 record, he has a 4.48 ERA, which isn't totally atrocious, and 76 Ks. We've seen some of the bright spots of what Alzolay can hopefully be in the future. So, Joey, I will turn it over to you, sir. A little preview, thoughts on tomorrow's game, and a fly the W pick before we go ahead and get out of here and wrap up the Cubs getting out of a losing streak.
Yeah, getting out of the losing streak is huge. Let's keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. Jump on them early. Same thing. Got to be the same strategy here. I mean, it should be every night, to be honest with you. Like, there should be no change in every single night, every single game. It should be try to jump on them early. I would like to see the lineup's not going to change much. I don't think it's going to change, but not much. I don't think from what it was tonight. I really want Nico Horner up towards the top. You know, I know that it's hard to change things when it's successful one night. You don't want to change things too much. You want to kind of keep it the same. I just really think that he's the type of dude that you put him towards the top of the lineup. I don't even care if it's like unconventional. I would be okay with him hitting maybe even fourth in the lineup. And that sounds unconventional, right? He's that much of like a contact hitter, clutch type of hitter, I think, that when guys are in scoring position, he's going to hit them in. So if you have a 2-out situation in the first inning, but there's a guy on second base, or whatever, I think he's gonna hit that guy in. I really have confidence in that. So I will put him up towards the top of the lineup. You know, it's good to see Rizzo getting it going again, and guys like that. Wilson swinging, he's hitting the ball hard. Jock, you know, all these guys. I think against Eflin, I'm gonna go with a left-handed bat. I'll probably go with. I wanted to go with Chris Bryant because I know he's got good numbers against him.
He does.
But I'm not gonna. I'm worried that he might not be in the lineup tomorrow too.
Fair.
So that's why I'm not gonna do it.
I mean, hey, you can take him and have a backup. That's okay. We will allow it if you want to go KB. But if KB's not in the lineup, then this guy.
No, I'll just refrain from KB. If you want to take him, I'll let you take him. But I'm gonna refrain from KB for now. I'm gonna go with Jock Peterson. So he had a solid game tonight, and I think he just keeps it going. Why not? He's kind of like guy that just gets streaky. When he gets going, he gets going. And why not? Why not just keep it going here against Zach Eflin, who's not a bad pitcher. He's really a pretty decent pitcher. So you gotta work your counts against him, but also jump on him in the first inning. Let's not let them get any momentum going early on.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, man. Yeah, I think tomorrow's game is going to be interesting. Like you said, it's managers don't like to stray away when things worked tonight the way they did in terms of the lineup construction. But I agree with you, though. I think Nico Horner is a guy that does well at the top of a lineup. I think his prime position is either 1 or 2, I think, truthfully, in a lineup. I know, you know, given the way that baseball has evolved, you know, people want their number 2 hitter to kind of be like that guy. Obviously, that's why Chris hits there a lot, but maybe then that's why Nico becomes a leadoff guy. You know, you let him get on base for a guy that's, you know, a Chris Bryant and a Javi Baez and an Anthony Rizzo that are run producers in those kind of 2, 3, and 4 hole in, you know, situations. I think, you know, like you said, kind of unconventionally, don't cancel me, internet. Don't cancel me, Cubs fans. Just hear me out and understand my example. But think back to 2016 when Addison Russell hit in the 5 hole. Was never a really monster power hitter,
right?
But a guy that could get contact on the ball and drive in runs. I think he only had like 22, 23 home runs that year, but he had almost 100 ribbies. I mean, he drove guys in. Like that's what he did in that 5 hole.
I look at Nico Horner as I think there's more power there. Like I think he's going to hit 20 home runs in a season.
Yeah, it's coming. It's absolutely coming. I think it absolutely has to. I mean, you can just tell by his physique. Like, he's put on the muscle mass, and yeah, he's got pop. I mean, he showed it a little bit, you know, in his first stint with the Cubs in 19. Last year was just a bad year for him. I think, you know, just a lot of unlucky. I mean, again, he had a lot of hard hits. It's just unfortunately they were always at dudes, and he really couldn't get anything going. But yeah, man, I mean, really, like I could see Nico stepping up. I know, there have been plenty of people on the internet talking about Nico Horner is going to be a future All-Star, and I think that's going to be the case. I think his average is going to stay high enough where year in and year out, he's a guy that is among the top at his position, whether that's second, whether that's short, whether that's wherever the hell he's playing. That is going to be talked about because of his average. And, again, if you put him in, positions to be successful, whether that's maybe as a leadoff guy, maybe his RBI numbers aren't great, but, the home run numbers are there and, the run scored numbers are there, or you put him a little lower in the lineup, maybe a 6 even. You give him those opportunities to drive guys in with the contact bat, like you said, Joey. And all of a sudden, I think the whole Nico Horner being an all-star thing isn't total bananas. I think there's a lot of truth to that potentially, in 2022 and beyond. But I think right now, I agree with you. I'm for him being moved up in the lineup, even if it is unconventional, even if it's for just a game, maybe a game where you give a guy like a Rizzo or a Bryant a night off. You can kind of get a little weird with the lineup, and we've seen Ross do that a little bit so far this year. I wouldn't be totally against that. I am going to pick KB as my Fly the W player because, as you mentioned, he has a 615 career average and 13 at-bats against Eflin. So that's hard to ignore because everybody else on the roster, the only player that even sniffs KB's average is Wilson. He's 2 for 5 in his career. So good for a 400 average. Everybody else is either a 333 or lower, concerning those that have actually seen Eflin in this lineup. But like to your point, God forbid KB's not in the lineup for some reason tomorrow. Maybe Ross just wants to give him the night, let him chill, whatever. I'm going to go ahead and take Nico, who we were just talking about. I think he is a good Fly the W pick. I think Nico has a good night. It'll be blasphemy if he's not in the lineup either. I might riot.
Wait, so this is your backup, or is this your?
This is my backup.
Okay.
Nico's my backup. I'm going to go KB for sure. So KB's in the lineup. I'm riding the 2016 MVP to a Fly the W point, but. God forbid that KB is not in the lineup. I really do like Nico. Just everything that we talked about tonight. He was 2 for 4, just gets it done, plays good defense. I think he's a player that, if KB's not in the lineup tomorrow, we'll have a big reason if they do win and split this series ultimately. So that will certainly be something good. Whew. Well, sir, this was a fun episode, man.
Hey, Ron, real quick.
It's been a good, yeah.
I don't want to cut you off, but we didn't talk about Javi, I don't think. And Javi, he was scratched. I don't know if people, they might be listening to this, they missed the game or something, but he was scratched.
No, good point.
Thumb, good point. I think.
Yes. So it was a thumb. Reports seem that it is that same thumb that was bothering him from earlier in the year that he messed up a little bit. Just sounds sore. He was available off the bench tonight. It just sounds like they just wanted to give him a blow. Obviously, they like Alcantara enough to feel comfortable playing him at short. With Nico back too, I think you feel a little better. You got that middle, up the middle depth now that Nico's off the IL. So again, it sounded like it was just a maintenance day for Javi. I kind of expect the Javi to be back in the lineup tomorrow, assuming that thumb feels better. But potentially could get another day off if they start looking ahead to that Cardinals series starting on Friday. So yeah, for those that are listening, good point. I appreciate you bringing that up, Joey. Javi was scratched from tonight's game. He was supposed to start. He was supposed to bat third and play short, obviously. But he was ultimately scratched. Alcantara filling in at short, and then they moved the lineup around a little bit, and and it worked. So fuck it.
Yeah, well, who gives a shit now, right?
They got the dub, even without their hottest bat, because Javi's actually been playing really well.
I was just gonna say, man, he's been killing it lately. So when I heard that on the radio, because I missed the first couple innings, I was on my way home from work, and I heard that he scratched with the. I'm like, what? No, like, come on. This is the one guy that's actually doing something, and he's scratched from the lineup. So immediately, my thoughts went right to the tank. I'm like, come on, what is going on here?
Yeah, immediately I was like, well, my fantasy team's going to suffer and not get any points tonight. But Nico filled in for him on my fantasy team tonight and did just fine. So I was at least happy about that.
There you go.
But yeah, no, Javi's hot streak has really delighted fantasy baseball owner Ron Luce. Over the last week or so, because Lord knows I need it. I'm on I finally got a win last week after a 4-game losing streak. It was bad. Yeah, it wasn't great, but well, sir, this was fun. This was the first show that you and I got to do together. This was your second Cubs on Tap now?
Second, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
nice.
It's been a while. Yeah, it's the first one. It was cool. It's cool, man. I had fun, obviously, talking baseball with you, talking Cubs, and
always a blast.
Again. We got a W doing the post game together. So
it's true. We are 1-0, and I will keep a mental note of that when, if a 3-game losing streak or something happens, I'll be like, hey, Joey, I need you tonight, man. We're giving everybody else.
Hey, I would like to say too, when I did it with Cody, they won the game too. So I'm not saying I'm 2-0.
Hey,
that's all I'm saying.
You ride that to the bank, man, because I couldn't even tell you how many losses I've done this season. It's been pretty miserable. But
when you do like every game, I think it's probably
it's one of those things where, like, when your sample size is as large as mine is, unfortunately you're gonna lose pretty much just as many as you win, unfortunately. But yeah, man, I mean, this was an absolute blast. Like you said, you're 2-0, which is pretty sweet. We got to keep that streak going. But before we do get out of here, I do want to remind everybody that Cubs on Tap is the official Cubs podcast of the On Tap Sports Network. You go ahead and check out all of our great coverage over at www.ontapsportsnet.com and at On Tap Sportsnet on social media. You can also follow the pod-specific accounts here for Cubs on Tap. We are at CUBS, that's CUBBIES on Tap. We're on both Twitter and Instagram there. I am at Loose on Tap on Twitter. Joey is at The Riot 326 on Twitter. Yes, it looks like Ryan Terrio, because you and I have talked about this. It has a little bit something to do with that. But you can follow both of us there. You can also follow all of our other great contributors at Juice on Tap, at Cody on Tap, at Joe Maris, at Marty Laval, and so many more here at Cubs on Tap and the On Tap Sports Network. Also, not only great Cubs coverage, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, and Cubs fans, let's not fool ourselves. All of us have at least one friend that likes the White Sox. You go ahead and bring them over to us as well, because our buddies over at Sox on Tap do an excellent job covering the Southsiders. So once again, you can find us www.ontapsportsnet.com and at ontapsportsnet on social media. The On Tap Sports Network. Go ahead and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Whew. I haven't done it that fast in a while. I didn't know if my lung capacity was going to be able to keep up with that one, but hey, when you do it enough times like I have, dude, it's literally just muscle memory at this point. And I know everybody always gives me crap. They call me the Pat Sajak of these podcasts because it just spews out, and just because I like to talk a lot. I'm finally using something that I used to get criticized for growing up about talking too much to an advantage, and using it on these podcasts. But Joey,
you found your gift. You found your gift.
I like
you're like a Cubs auctioneer,
Yeah, I can't talk that fast though. If I could, that would be impressive. I can't do that though. I'll run out of air in about 15 seconds if I try to do something like that. But no, nonetheless, man, this was a blast. Again, Cubs winner tonight. Cubs win 8-3 over the Phillies. They break their 11-game losing streak. Thank God, because I don't think any Cubs fan can mentally handle them getting to 12. Once again, from Ron Luce, Joey Ricotta. Joey, what do you say? We get out of here the only way we know how to, my man? Let's go, Cubs.
Let's go.